I'm Arianna Thorne, 28, and last night at La Maison, San Francisco's most exclusive restaurant, my stepmom Cordelia made the biggest mistake of her carefully curated social life. She looked me straight in the eyes, her diamond tennis bracelet catching the candlelight, and said, "Stay quiet, poor girl. You're embarrassing us all." The words hung in the air like poison, but I didn't flinch. Instead, I checked my watch, 29 p.m. Perfect timing. In exactly 1 minute, every screen in this prestigious restaurant would light up with a truth Cordelia had spent 7 years hiding. My father, James, shifted uncomfortably in his custom-tailored suit, avoiding eye contact as always. My stepbrother Wesley smirked behind his champagne flute, probably thinking about his next luxury car purchase. "Of course, Cordelia," I replied softly, reaching for my water glass. "We wouldn't want to embarrass the family." She smiled that practiced smile, the one that had fooled so many in San Francisco's elite circles, the one that had convinced my father she was the perfect second wife after my mother died, the one that was about to shatter like the crystal she loved to show off. 30 p.m. The massive screens around the restaurant, usually displaying wine selections and chef's specials, flickered in perfect synchronization. Cordelia's face drained of color as her own voice filled the elegant space, not the polished society wife voice she used in public, but her real voice, the one I'd been recording for months. Before I tell you what happened next, let me explain how we got here, how my tech-savvy background gave me the perfect tools for exposure, and why sometimes the quietest person in the room is the one you should fear most. Because revenge, like success in Silicon Valley, is all about timing and execution. 7 years ago, I was a fresh Stanford graduate with a computer science degree and a dream of changing the world through technology. My mother, brilliant mathematician Sarah Thorne, had passed away when I was 12, leaving me with precious memories of coding sessions and late-night algorithm discussions. She taught me that intelligence was worth more than inheritance, a lesson I'd carry through the darkest days ahead. My father, James, was different after Mom died. The passionate physics professor became a shell of himself, buried in research papers and grief. When Cordelia swept into our lives 2 years later, all perfectly manicured nails and practiced sympathy, I wanted to believe she could heal our broken family. I was 14, desperate for maternal guidance and completely blind to the predator in Prada. At first, Cordelia played her role perfectly. She'd attend my science fairs, comment on my cute little computer projects, and tell everyone how blessed she was to have such a special stepdaughter. But there was always an edge to her words, a subtle diminishing of my achievements. Her son Wesley, 3 years my senior, transferred to my high school, immediately establishing himself as the golden child with his trust fund and charisma. The dynamics shifted gradually. Family dinners became networking events. My father's 10-year celebration turned into Cordelia's social coup. Every milestone in my life was overshadowed by her carefully orchestrated drama. When I landed my first tech job at 23, Cordelia hosted a party not to celebrate my achievement, but to introduce Wesley to potential investors for his latest failed startup. I learned to navigate this new reality, building my career quietly while Cordelia played society queen. I rose through Silicon Valley's ranks, turning my mother's lessons into success that money couldn't buy. But Cordelia saw my achievements as threats to her carefully constructed world, and that's when the real trouble began. The first real incident happened at my Series A funding announcement. I'd developed an AI security platform that caught Silicon Valley's attention, securing $5 million in investment. Cordelia showed up uninvited, wearing a dress that cost more than my first apartment's rent, and promptly told my investors she'd always supported Arianna's little hobby. My father sat there, swirling his whiskey, offering nothing but a weak smile. It was the same smile he'd worn when Cordelia accidentally excluded me from the family Christmas card, or when she'd refer to me as her husband's first marriage mistake at charity galas. The pattern was always the same. She'd undermine me in public, then play victim when confronted. "Oh, darling, you're so sensitive," she'd say. While Wesley lounged by their infinity pool, living off his monthly allowance that exceeded my senior developer salary, every family event became a battlefield. At Thanksgiving, she'd showcase Wesley's latest entrepreneurial venture, failed businesses, funded by my father's retirement savings. During Easter, she'd parade her country club friends through our family home, introducing me as our resident tech support. My achievements were minimized, my presence tolerated only because cutting me out completely would raise uncomfortable questions in their social circle. The financial disparity was glaring. While I lived in a modest apartment, working 60-hour weeks, Cordelia redecorated their mansion quarterly. She drove a new Mercedes while I took the Caltrain, but it wasn't about the money, it was about respect. About the way she'd convinced my father that his own daughter was somehow less worthy than her son. I documented everything quietly, building my case like I built my company with patience and precision. Each snide remark, every backhanded compliment, all the times my father chose peace over justice. I was done being the family's cautionary tale. The discovery that changed everything came through Maya, my best friend and head of PR at my company. "Ari, you need to see this," she texted one night, sending screenshots from Cordelia's private Instagram account, one I didn't even know existed. There, hidden behind a fake name, was the real Cordelia Thorne. Posts mocking my new money success. Stories about how she'd saved my father from his dreary academic life. Worst of all, detailed plans to convince him to revise his will, ensuring Wesley would inherit everything, including my mother's family property. "Poor James," one post read, "still hanging onto his dead wife's memory through that daughter. Thank God Wesley gives him a real legacy to be proud of." My hands shook as I scrolled through years of digital venom. But it wasn't just social media. Maya's investigation uncovered a pattern of financial manipulation. Cordelia had been systematically transferring my father's assets into joint accounts, then moving them to private ones in her and Wesley's names. That night, I started recording everything. I installed high-end security cameras in my apartment, capturing every interaction when they visited. My phone became a weapon, secretly documenting every family dinner, every social event. The evidence mounted. Cordelia's mask slipping when she thought no one was watching, her cruel comments when my father stepped away, her whispered threats about my place in the family. The final straw came during a charity gala. I overheard her telling her socialite friends that my company's success was built on stealing Wesley's ideas. "Poor thing," she laughed, so desperate to prove herself, she'd steal from her own brother. That's when I knew. Exposing her wasn't just about revenge, it was about justice. I called Maya the next morning. "I need your help," I said. "It's time to show everyone who Cordelia Thorne really is." The video took 3 weeks to perfect. Maya and I worked late into the night, piecing together footage that would shatter Cordelia's carefully constructed facade. We started with her Instagram confessions, screen recorded with timestamps to prove authenticity. Then came the security footage. Cordelia rifling through my home office during a casual visit, photographing confidential business documents. The audio clips were devastating, her voice dripping with contempt, calling me a charity case at the country club. The phone conversation with Wesley, plotting to discredit my company's upcoming IPO. Every clip meticulously edited, each transition timed for maximum impact, but the masterstroke came from an unexpected source. Thomas, the La Maison's owner, had been my first client when I started my security company. When I explained my plan, he didn't just agree, he offered to help. "The screens in my restaurant are yours," he said. "That woman has made enough servers cry." We chose the annual Thorne family business dinner carefully. Cordelia always insisted on La Maison for these events, parading her social status. This year, she'd invited potential investors for Wesley's latest scheme, witnesses I couldn't have paid for. I coordinated with the restaurant's tech team, synchronizing the video with their display system. Maya handled the audio, ensuring every screen would broadcast in perfect harmony. We did 3 test runs after hours, adjusting volume levels, fixing transitions. The timing had to be flawless. I knew Cordelia would try to belittle me during dinner, she always did. That would be our cue. One subtle text to Thomas, and the show would begin. Everything was set, every detail considered, every escape route planned. The night before, I sat in my apartment, finger hovering over the final backup save. "For you, Mom," I whispered, clicking confirm. Tomorrow, Cordelia would learn that in Silicon Valley, information was the deadliest weapon of all. La Maison buzzed with hidden energy that evening. Thomas had positioned his most discreet servers near our table, each wearing an earpiece connected to our operation. Maya sat at the bar, laptop open, disguised as a casual patron working late. Every screen in the restaurant had been tested twice that afternoon. I arrived early, wearing a simple black Chanel dress, my one luxury purchase since my company's success. Cordelia had always mocked my basic fashion choices, but tonight's understated elegance was deliberate. Let her think I was still the unsophisticated stepdaughter she could dismiss. The maitre d', part of our plan, seated us at the central table, perfect sightlines to every screen. Cordelia swept in with my father and Wesley, wearing an ostentatious red gown that screamed new money, though she'd die before admitting it. 3 investors and their wives joined us, exactly as predicted. "Arianna, darling," Cordelia air-kissed my cheeks. "I almost didn't recognize you without your usual, what do you call them, hoodies?" The investors' wives tittered politely, right on script. I watched her hold court during appetizers, telling her practiced stories about guiding my father's investments, positioning Wesley as the next tech visionary. My phone buzzed silently, Maya confirming all systems were ready. Thomas caught my eye from across the room, a subtle nod. The technical setup was flawless. Every screen had been calibrated to start simultaneously. The audio would begin softly, building to a volume that that couldn't be ignored. Security cameras were recording from multiple angles, capturing what would happen next. Even the lighting had been adjusted to ensure maximum visibility. I checked my watch again, 8:25 p.m. In 5 minutes, Cordelia's carefully constructed world would implode. She raised her wine glass, about to deliver another subtle jab. Perfect timing as always. Stay quiet, poor girl. You're embarrassing us all. Cordelia's words hung in the air. Then, as if orchestrated by fate itself, every screen in La Maison flickered to life. Her own face appeared, dozens of versions simultaneously, each displaying a different moment of her true nature. That little brat thinks she's something with her tech company. Cordelia's voice filled the restaurant. The footage switched to her rifling through my office. Then her Instagram rants about James's pathetic first family. The investor beside her choked on his wine. We just need to push her out slowly, screened Cordelia explained to Wesley. Your father's so weak when it comes to her. Once we control the assets, the color drained from my father's face as the evidence of financial manipulation played out. Cordelia lunged for her water glass, knocking over a $400 bottle of wine. This isn't turn it off, she shrieked. But the videos continued, her mocking my mother's memory, her bragging about stealing from my father's accounts, her plans to sabotage my company's IPO. The restaurant had gone completely silent, except for the damning soundtrack of Cordelia's own voice. Other diners stood up, phones recording her meltdown. Wesley slumped in his chair, watching his mother's social suicide with the same smirk he'd worn while watching my humiliation all these years. James, do something. Cordelia grabbed my father's arm, but he sat there, finally seeing his wife clearly for the first time. The investors were already gathering their coats, murmuring about reconsidering their commitments. I remained seated, sipping my water, watching 7 years of abuse and manipulation unravel in 7 minutes of unedited truth. When the screens finally went dark, the silence was deafening. Every eye in the restaurant turned to our table. Well, I said softly, I guess I'm not so quiet anymore. Cordelia's breakdown was spectacular. She lunged across the table, manicured nails aimed at my face, screaming about betrayal and revenge. 2 servers intercepted her before she could reach me. The scene only added to her humiliation, the perfectly poised socialite, now a shrieking mess in San Francisco's most exclusive restaurant. You little snake, she spat, mascara running down her cheeks. After everything I've done for you. The irony of her words echoed through the stunned restaurant. Phones captured every moment, her meltdown already spreading across social media platforms she'd once dominated. My father sat frozen, his world crumbling around him. The evidence of financial manipulation had hit him hardest years of bank statements and secret transfers displayed for everyone to see. Wesley, ever the coward, had slipped out during the chaos, leaving his mother to face the music alone. Within hours, the video went viral in Silicon Valley's tight-knit circles. Cordelia Thorne and Stepmom from Hell trended locally. The investors who'd witnessed everything personally called their networks, warning others about the Thorne family drama. Cordelia's carefully curated social status evaporated with each share and retweet. You've ruined me, she hissed as security escorted her out. You have no idea what you've done, but I knew exactly what I'd done. I'd exposed the truth not just for me, but for every server she'd belittled, every social climber she'd stepped on, every person she'd manipulated in her quest for status. Thomas approached my table after they left, placing a hand on my shoulder. Your mother would be proud, he said quietly. He'd known her too, back when she was alive, before Cordelia rewrote our family history. I stayed seated, watching the aftermath unfold. My phone buzzed continuously messages from other stepdaughters, from old family friends, from people finally ready to share their own Cordelia stories. The truth, once released, couldn't be contained. The weeks following the La Maison incident transformed our family completely. My father, shaken by the evidence of Cordelia's manipulation, finally emerged from his decade-long fog. He showed up at my office one morning, looking older and wiser, holding a stack of papers. I've frozen the accounts, he said quietly. All of them. The transfers, the secret withdrawals, I had no idea, Arianna. His voice cracked. I failed you twice. First after your mother died, then by letting Cordelia, he couldn't finish. I hadn't seen him cry since Mom's funeral. The investigation revealed the full scope of Cordelia's schemes. She'd siphoned nearly $2 million into private accounts, manipulated property deeds, and nearly succeeded in changing my father's will. Legal proceedings began, but the social consequences hit harder. Her country club friends vanished. Wesley's investors pulled out. Their carefully constructed house of cards collapsed. My father filed for divorce, moving into a small apartment near Stanford. He started teaching again, finding his way back to the passionate professor I remembered from childhood. We began having weekly dinners, just us. No pretense, no social climbing, no Cordelia. During one of these dinners, he pulled out an old photo of Mom. She knew exactly who she was, he said. Like you do. I got lost lost trying to be someone else. The healing began slowly, but it began. My company's IPO proceeded successfully, untainted by Cordelia's attempted sabotage. The press loved the story female tech founder overcomes family drama to build industry-leading security firm, but the real victory wasn't professional. It was personal. I learned that sometimes the strongest revenge isn't in destroying someone else's facade, but in finally being true to yourself. Cordelia had tried to make me small, quiet, invisible. Instead, she taught me to stand tall, speak up, and shine. A year after that night at La Maison, I stood at my mother's grave, placing fresh flowers beside her headstone. The autumn breeze carried the scent of Stanford's eucalyptus trees, her favorite. I had news to share. My company had just launched a foundation supporting young women in STEM. Named in her honor, Cordelia and Wesley had moved to Arizona. Their social media presence scrubbed clean, their influence evaporated. The last I heard, she was trying to rebuild her reputation in Scottsdale's lesser social circles. But her story lived on as a cautionary tale in Silicon Valley, how pride and manipulation eventually meet their match in truth and technology. My father joined me at the cemetery that day, our new tradition. He'd found his way back to himself, back to being the dad who once taught me about quantum physics over breakfast. Your mother would love who you've become, he said, his voice strong and clear. Not because of your success, but because you never lost yourself achieving it. The healing wasn't instant, and some wounds would always leave scars. But I'd learned valuable lessons. That strength doesn't always roar. Sometimes it quietly holds its ground. That revenge served cold tastes better when seasoned with justice. That family isn't about blood or status, but about truth and trust. I established clear boundaries in all my relationships. No more diminishing my light to make others comfortable. No more accepting subtle cruelty disguised as family loyalty. My success became a beacon for others struggling with similar battles. Maya often jokes that I should write a book, How to Serve Revenge at a 5-Star Restaurant. But this story isn't really about revenge. It's about reclaiming your narrative, about standing in your power, about honoring the quiet girl who finally found her voice. Sometimes the best revenge is simply becoming exactly who you were meant to be, unapologetically and completely. Thanks for listening. Don't forget to subscribe for more powerful revenge stories. And if you've ever faced betrayal or family drama, feel free to share your story in the comments, because your voice matters here.